Hey, and welcome back. Today we are having part 2 conversation with the extraordinary Paolo Mottola from REI. And this is part 2 conversation where we are getting a behind the scenes look and insights around REI's internal co-op studios, which is basically their internal content production and strategy function. And we're going to talk a lot more about what it is that they create and the rich brand storytelling assets that they create for the company. And as you are listening, I wanted to create this because a huge question, every company faces at one point is thinking through their content production and their content strategy and how is it all structured and what's in-house, what's out of house, how do those two things work together? And so listen, and I hope that this will give you some, ideas of your own structure as you're growing or, developing, revising your own content production and strategy teams. Paolo Mottola is the Divisional VP of Brand Marketing at REI Co-op, an outdoor retailer and the largest consumer co-op in the U.S. with 23 million members. He leads marketing strategy, campaigns, partnerships, and brand marketing channels, including advertising, social media, and content marketing. He created and leads REI Co-op Studios, which develops and produces films, podcasts, and editorial programs to inspire audiences with transformative outdoor storytelling. Paolo has contributed to REI's most renowned Cannes Lions winning campaigns, the hashtag #OptOutside and Force of Nature campaigns. His previous brand and communications work includes Microsoft, Samsung, U.S. Army, and Eddie Bauer. He's an alumnus and faculty of the University of Washington Communications Leadership Graduate Program and studied journalism at Western Washington University. Welcome to Marketing with Empathy, where we help marketers and business professionals create content that drives better business results, content that attracts and engages new and existing customers. How? By planning content through an empathy lens, positioning your customer as the hero and you and your brand as the guide that they want to buy from because you get them. I'm your host, Sarah Panus, and I understand how hard it is to juggle all the demands coming at you. As a content strategist and certified story brand guide, I have more than 20 years of experience creating winning content plans for brands of all sizes, including Sleep Number, Starbucks, Nestle Waters, Lindt Chocolate, SheFit, and numerous mid and small size businesses, helping drive millions of engagements and sales each year. And this podcast is in the top 5% of all marketing podcasts thanks to your support. So let's hear from today's sponsors and then jump right into my conversation with REI's Divisional Vice President of Brand Marketing, Paolo Mottola, to hear more about their internal co-op studios and what insights you can glean as you are developing or growing or revising your own internal content production and strategy structure. And after you listen to today's episode, if you missed part 1 conversation from last week with Paolo, check that out because we dug into REI's new summer Opt-Outside campaign. And Paolo gave us the backstory from when it started back in 2015 to today and, some more insights around why they choose to keep leaning into these rich story marketing campaigns and ideas for their company.
Brace the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more to reach the professionals who are more likely to find your ad relevant. Plus, with 1 billion members on LinkedIn, that means you'll have access to 130 million decision makers and 10 million C-level executives. That's a lot of millions of the right people. Get started today and see how you can reach the right buyers with LinkedIn's enhanced targeting tools. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply.
Choosing a bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drink that's all flavor and just 100 calories? Easy. Choosing between creamy vanilla, double chocolate, and sea salt caramel flavors? A little harder. Try the delicious new Starbucks Frappuccino light drinks. Look for them wherever you buy groceries. Start with Starbucks coffee.
Paolo, welcome back for part 2 of our conversation. Excited to have you back on the show. My first question as we dig into co-op studios and how that works at REI is at REI, you are all creating so much great storytelling content. You have films, podcasts, feature-length content, in addition to all the other foundational and transactional types of content. So I guess my first question that I want to start with is why? Talk to us about why you've chosen to lean into brand storytelling so much.
It's a great question. Why do we lose our minds trying to find and tell great stories in REI? I first have to acknowledge a really rich tradition of storytelling in the outdoor industry. So REI is an outdoor retailer, been around for 85 years, and the culture of the outdoors is steeped in storytelling. People are doing amazing things outside and have done amazing things outside. And we've got great media out there, like Outside Magazine and National Geographic. We've got these film series like Real Rock and Warren Miller ski films, right, that have brought together communities for generations. It's pretty natural for an outdoor company like REI to also want to contribute to that storytelling tradition, right? And what's unique about REI is we've got 24 million members in our cooperative, and those are people that are doing amazing things. Our employees are doing amazing things. They're off hiking in Europe and doing backpacking trips and through hiking, and certainly our customers are doing that too. So we've got this palette of amazing characters that are part of our cooperative, and we have always felt that we kind of have a responsibility to use the platform we have as a brand to celebrate all of that. And then again, it's just on the arc of a tradition I think we've had in our culture for decades.
And obviously it must be working, because no company will ever continue to keep investing so heavily in something if it isn't getting a return of some kind for the business, right?
Yep, for sure. And the reality is we're not immune to that at REI or the category that we get to work in. And we have a responsibility to our members that as we're telling stories and inspiring people, that also makes business sense too. So that way we have a healthy co-op and we can continue the work that we do and impact in other places for our members.
Okay, so I want to get into this episode with you about content production and like the actual making of all of the content, because it's a heck of a lot of work to make all of this content. I know from my days working on corporate, and you can see the level that you guys are creating, and I know it's a lot of work and takes more than obviously one person to make all of this. And it's always a big thing that every company has to figure out, no matter if you're doing small content production planning all the way up to big, massive content production. And a common question I hear and have lived through myself is, will we create the content internally, externally, a blend of both? What's the best way to structure it and track it and hire for it? What the heck should we talk about? What format should we make? All these things. And so you've personally been at the helm of building really a best-in-class process with your co-op studios. And so that's what we're going to dig into today. And I have so many questions about it. So I think my first question, just to level set all of us, is how did co-op studios take shape? Like, what questions were you all asking that led to the creation of co-op studios in the first place?
Yeah, this brand is really cool. We have actually had some kind of a newsletter, for lack of a better term, for our members for decades. So we've actually had this really strong kind of editorial tradition at REI where we're just letting everyone know what's happening with our co-op, what's happening in impact, what's happening with environmentalism, what are some of the fun products that we have. We look at that history and that tradition at REI, and a few years ago, looked at how we need to dimensionalize it and how we needed to modernize how we reach customers and audiences just with the different formats and coming online and social media and the challenges of digital distribution, because there's so much content out there, right? How do we cut through as a brand and reach our members? So we really continued from first the point of just education. How are we educating our customers about the outdoors and get them into product and help them use it and recycle it, that kind of thing. And we have an online library called Expert Advice, which really is our content marketing program in a nutshell. It's over 20 years old. Teams have been working on this for quite a while. And we said, okay, if we are educating our customers and just answering their questions about the outdoors and how to use outdoor product, then we have permission to do more, like more storytelling in more formats. Because if we don't take care of what customers need from us every day, I also don't think we have permission to do kind of more premium storytelling. So we looked at that, made sure that was in a healthy place and really productive and doing the job it needed to do. So then the question became, well, what's the upside of more inspirational storytelling or even more traditional journalism? And we came up with this idea that we ended up calling Co-op Studios, which is a premium marker for storytelling that comes from REI, but isn't about retailing, right? Isn't about our store experience. It's about the human condition. It's about news and events. It's about the stories that shape outdoor culture and lifestyles for people. And we just realized that our customers and really the media marketplace needed to understand that we were doing some different things for different objectives. So our education efforts, even from the same team, are in service of our retail experience. What we do through Co-op Studios is in the interest of building an audience, of inviting more people into an outdoor life that maybe they didn't see themselves in because they didn't see themselves in stories previously from other outlets and other media companies. And so this idea of Co-op Studios was, let's really aim for more of a like a slugging average, right? Like more hits, more like the traditional media company, still within the construct of a brand and a corporation, but do it in a way that is more in the tradition of storytelling and less maybe traditional content marketing or just retail marketing in general.
What's the general composition of Co-op Studios like then, of who's in-house versus the external team?
So the way that Co-op Studios is designed today is in a few different formats. We have an editorial format in which we've got editors that are working with freelancers who are REI members, and we're just trying to find the best stories that are culturally relevant and interesting. And sometimes those are like humor pieces or essays, or sometimes they're reporting on current events. So there's an editorial arm that's copy-based. We have a podcast producing arm, and we've got a couple of great shows like Wild Ideas Worth Living in the podcast space and Camp Monsters, which is kind of like cryptozoology, stories around the campfire, a really fun setting. And so we've got audio as part of Co-op Studios, and we have film. And I'd say we're probably best known for film because we've been doing quite a bit of work there over the last 5 or 6 years. We've created, I think, 35 short documentaries, half a dozen feature-length films. And these are just pretty robust because of the effort it takes, the level of production, and then also the reality that so much of our content consumption today is video-based. So customers and audiences are finding these videos on YouTube. Some of them have gone to streamers like Hulu and Netflix. They've gone theatrical to hundreds of theaters nationwide. We've done fiction, we've done documentary. And so we've played in all these spaces, and Co-op Studios is a team, a centralized team that has talent that's good at so many of those disciplines, that has a hybrid model where we're trying to work with the best production companies or freelancers and journalists that we can work with to produce the best possible versions of the stories that we have to tell.
So with Co-op Studios focusing on editorial, podcasting, and film, do they also help with other content across the company that other teams need help with? Like, for example, if there's social content, or would the social team in that example be doing that on their own?
Yeah, so Co-op Studios, like I said, is really like the moniker for our most premium content. And the teams that work on that content are actually working across the brand every day. So the same team that is working on our brand campaigns like Opt Outside is the same team that's working on a film in production or a podcast episode that we're producing or an article. So we don't have a dedicated team for that dedicated output. We have a team that are subject matter experts in their format and their discipline, and they're working across these different outputs for the brand and these different objectives that a Co-op Studio story has, which may be different than a marketing campaign.
Okay, great. And then a mix of pulling in external partners and experts to help with it as you need to. Because I remember when I worked in corporate, and there was always the question mark of how heavy up do you hire internally? Because it's the question of, is it or isn't it more expensive to hire internally versus outsourcing it? And for some things, I imagine, like feature-length films, the sophistication required with that is high. And so it's more efficient to work with external partners who have all the equipment and the setup and can do all the casting and all those kind of things for the brand. Is that kind of how you would think about it from the work that you've done? Or have you found any loopholes to actually make more of it in-house more efficiently?
Yeah, no loopholes here, Sarah. And you said it really well. Creating a feature film is a massive production that takes months of dedicated teams and real specialization in production. So we are not in-housing any of that. What we found is a model where basically an editorial group, and I mean to say like editors, like not writers or staff writers, but really editors are the mode that we found works best. They are assigning stories, taking pitches, finding continuity across themes of stories that we can curate and publish, and looking for the consistency that we want to build as a brand. And that's the job of an editor. That's really different than producers on more the multimedia side, audio and video, where, kind of a similar construct where they're at the helm of making decisions, RFPing, doing a request for proposal out to groups, or receiving pitches from the creative community. It's kind of a similar function, but a different discipline, right? So it's lots of nuances with how the copy editing cycle works and just the journalistic process and the filmmaking process. But you can kind of hear the way it's set up. The jobs are kind of similar. We're just respecting that the disciplines have different etiquette, have different subject matter expertise, and different complexity. So a 400-word essay is just really different than a short film about an event that happens on location at altitude in our space. And so we have to work with people that are just good at that. And what we've been able to do, I think, is attract both an in-house team that has traditional creative and journalistic backgrounds, like truly working at the best publishers of the day, freelancers and producers that are also fantastic in their own right, in terms of being award-winning journalists or acclaimed filmmakers that go to film festivals, or talking to people that have won Oscars. Like that pedigree is what we're looking for, what we've been able to attract. And so we're not trading on talent at all. We're not trading on quality of story. I think what we're really trading on is our REI's point of view and how it is that as a retail brand, we have an agenda. We have a bias. We want to see more people get outside. We want to see more people live an outdoor life. We hope that they shop at REI when they have a need to get outside. And we have an impact agenda where we think that the outdoor space needs to be more equitable. And so we choose stories, we produce stories with that agenda in mind, because we want to see more people get outside. And that's different than independent media. That's different than independent film, right? But we tap into the same talent pools who tend to agree with us on some of those issues and some of those value statements. And we found that that's a really symbiotic way to work, and a way that we can, to your point, extend the scale of these things. So we can't do it all in-house. We have to work with external freelancers and production companies, but we get to the scale because we get to work with many of those at once through an editorial core in-house and a producer core in-house that manage those relationships and basically set that slate of stories over time.
Okay, so as we're visualizing Co-op Studios, we can see that it is both a blend of production as well as strategy. Everyone's working together holistically, playing that role. It makes sense with the in-house core expertise because they're going to know the brand the best and can work with external partners to communicate that and make sure it's on brand in a seamless way. So, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now then, I'm curious. It's been several years since you've created Co-op Studios. I want to talk learnings. For folks who are listening who want to beef up their own content production and team and strategy, just everything. Any early mistakes that you recommend avoiding as you went through this process that would be good for people to hear?
So many mistakes, right? And you said it earlier, we in-house the strategy, right? The strategy is entirely in-house, and how the strategy takes shape and the stories that come from it, our collaboration with partners in our member community and the creative community. So many of the mistakes early, oh my goodness, because we're in the hit rate business, it was some decision quality about just stories that were compelling and right for our audience, and in the format that was right for our audience. So the things that pained me along the way were a really rich production that not enough people saw because we didn't have the distribution right, or the format we were delivering wasn't right for the channel. It took a while for audiences to want to watch longer form content on YouTube. It's come, YouTube is in the living room now in a lot of homes, and we're feeling a lot more comfortable. But 8-10 years ago when we were doing some of this, that was a little bit less the customer behavior. So I think we learned a lot about, and are still learning a lot about distribution and where audience is, and that's just a moving target for all of us. I think we also learned that we had to show as much as tell, and I mean that internally with the stakeholders at REI and with our audience. Like, we couldn't just say we're going to start telling stories. We had to demonstrate the stories that we wanted to tell. We had to say, it looks like this. It's this short film format, and it's documentary style, and it's on location, and it's multiple characters, and it's voiceover, and it's interview. Because if you don't have some proof of concept, which it just took us too long to get to, if we didn't have a good proof of concept, it was too hard to explain the idea in abstract of what storytelling means. Right? Because everyone has a different idea of stories. We all consume them differently. We have different formats. We like different media companies. We subscribe to different things. And you got to kind of show your audience and your internal stakeholders the flavor of storytelling that you want to do to get everyone to believe in it. Then certainly the performance needs to come, and the views and the visits need to happen. But so much of the learning was expedite the proof of concept so everyone gets the same idea. Because you're in a creative space, and it's really hard to demonstrate creative ideas without a mood board or without actually seeing the work. And it took a while for us to understand, to get to a decision quality on the types of stories that were right for our brand and could become distinct to REI and not just add noise or maybe be misattributed to another media company or another brand because they weren't different enough from what other brands and media companies were publishing.
Great learnings. And I echo that need for doing internal PR for your storytelling initiatives. It was the same thing for me when I worked in corporate, when I worked at Sleep Number, that I learned early on was I needed to get support and get those allies to be able to get the budget and to grow everything that was in the vision to help people understand it. So I 100% echo what you just said in terms of the importance of showing proof of concept, of just getting people on the same page to visualize what it is you're all working towards so they can get excited about it. And this is really key, everyone. You know, if storytelling and story marketing is newer at your organization, it's baby steps of like bringing people along the way. So Paolo, I want to cheer you on and support you as you're going through that journey. And everyone listening, same to you, because it's not always easy to be able to grow it into something like that. Okay, so then on the flip side then, Paolo, what key wins do you recommend all businesses must keep in mind when building their own content team?
Yeah, I think that a requirement for a lot of brands is to keep the strategy in-house. If you're doing this brand side, no one knows your brand better than you, and I think you have some risk having that be a total consultation. Certainly, you need some counsel, but outsourcing strategy, I think, is a tough way to go. And to drive an ownable content marketing strategy or an ownable studio strategy, the risk with doing this work is creative fragmentation, is brand fragmentation. When you're telling so many types of stories, and especially if you're relying on multiple companies, production companies, or freelancers to do that with you, they've got their own kind of taste and aesthetic, and you mix that up too much, or there's not an in-house team looking at what needs to stay true to core or like true to brand, you can really have a hard time creating like a collection that feels like a media company or feels like a studio or feels like a cohesive marketing strategy, right? So those are some of the things that I think we established early, and I would recommend to other brands to explore. We also set out a pretty aggressive goal in terms of distribution. Some of the earlier PowerPoint slides I was creating and showing to executives was, hey, I really think that in 2 or 3 years' time, we'll have a project that gets to a streaming service and a national audience. 2 or 3 years' time, I really think that we'll have a successful episodic podcast. 2 or 3 years' time, like we're going to be in theaters nationwide. Those are pretty ambitious things to say and BHAGs and have a cost structure to them, right? These things cost money. And by the way, a lot of our investments are equity investments in the content. So we get a return on that investment for the distribution, right? So just to break that down a little bit more, in addition to the halo effects that we hope this has on our brand and brand awareness and some traffic driving results, we also expect to monetize on the content itself the way that a traditional media publisher does. So some of the wins for us were, yes, people want to advertise around the content we produce. That's a really nice validation of the content quality and the audience quality you have. Yes, we were able to figure out a really different system to get to theatrical distribution than we're accustomed to in a retail landscape. A really different entertainment system to get to the streaming community and help them see that REI isn't giving them a commercial, REI is giving them a true creative asset in partnership with the creative community. And a big win for us was an appreciation for the time these things take. We definitely miscalculated. Maybe I'll put this back in the learnings bucket, that especially feature length takes truly years, right? We've had some projects that from incubation and signing on for a project, it's taken 4 years to go to market. That's a really long time, especially in like a public company, which we are not. If you're in the quarterly earnings space, or you have shareholders and a project takes 4 years to manifest, that may not be a good fit for a lot of brands, right? They may need to see a faster return or a faster result from that content investment. So lots of things that we've been able to get done and see go to market, but that's all on the balance of learnings along the way to create a better hit rate or more wins and better decision quality for the next projects that we have to look forward to.
How do you think about your content strategy and what pieces you end up ultimately creating?
So we've spent a lot of time on developing our content strategy, and it has gone through iterations. But on the balance, I think we found a couple axes for strategy that is applicable to a lot of brands and agencies, consulting brands or consultants. The first axis is how integrated a story can be with the rest of the business. So there are some things that we do that are really tied to our campaign. So for example, we put together a beautiful short film about Anacostia Park and the community around it. It's a park in Washington, D.C. area. And that was very related to a campaign we had called Outside in 5. That's about connecting more people to green spaces within 5 minutes and work that REI is doing on the ground in Washington, D.C. It's totally integrated, right? The story plus campaign or the impact effort. There's some things we do that are really independent from the business. So we have a feature-length film called Fry Bread, Face and Me that's streaming on Netflix, premiered at South by Southwest. It's had a really true, natural feature film run in its own right. Been pretty detached from our core business. Now we have got programs and impact efforts for the Indigenous community, for example, but we weren't trying to tie that story to those efforts and those activities, right? So they're related and on the balance related to our brand, but it's pretty independent from the rest of our business. Our content strategy gives us a model to do that with intention, basically. So we're not trying to like create content and figure out what to do with it. We coordinate with the business, what's in the interest of serving the business, kind of what isn't. The other axis is basically volume and complexity. Co-op Studios has done a lot of really pinnacle premium work in film and podcast. Most of our volume is in articles, right? And how to, and just helping the customer. So we've found that we do need to spend most of our time serving the customer journey, doing things that help our employees and our customer navigate our business and brands and activities they participate in. And when we do that well, it creates space for the premium storytelling because we're paying off what the business needs to do with the content marketing strategy to enable the premium content. So our content strategy is always balancing how integrated the stories are with how close they are to getting those business questions and that customer journey and the fidelity that those can occur at and kind of the hit rate we need to have for all those things to work together.
All right, this wraps up part 2. Paolo, tell us the best way for people to connect with you and with REI.
The way to connect with me online is on LinkedIn. You search Paolo and REI, you're going to find me just fine. You used to do a little SEO, and you can also find me on Google that way. And the best way to connect with REI is twofold. One, go to rei.com. Check out what we've got going on our site there. You can navigate to Expert Advice, which is our online education library, or Uncommon Path, which is our online magazine, which also contains links to our podcasts and videos. And then secondly, head into an REI store. We've got over 180 stores across the United States. We have amazing people who work in our stores. That's really our best brand expression every day. I was talking to someone who's wearing a green vest and is an outdoor expert. And there's great stories in our stores too.
Until next week, God bless.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Hennika Watkins-Porter hosts The Entrepreneurial You, empowering entrepreneurs with insights on leadership, business, and success. Hennika, tell listeners what to expect from your show.
So we provide innovative business strategies and practical solutions to common entrepreneurial challenges.
And where can people subscribe?
Find us at hennikawatkinsporter.com, as well as the Marketing Podcast Network at marketingpodcast.net, or search for it wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard her. Go subscribe.